So, good evening. Okay, I'll start my session. Hope I'm audible. So, guys who are telling hello, hi everyone, hi. Thank you for joining in. I hope you are enjoying the Corona time as of now. And I'll put the today's agenda, why we are meeting and what are going to learn today in this Facebook or Instagram live. Who else have joined? Thank you for joining in. Hello everyone. Thank you. Yep, thank you. Okay, let me go back to my agenda items. What is today's activity? What I am going to discuss today? I am going to speak about pharmacovigilance, the most important aspect. I'll be speaking about agenda before I start, and then I'll be completing the agenda items one by one. So the first thing is I'll be discussing about what is pharmacovigilance, what it means actually, what is pharmacovigilance as per WHO, and where from this pharmacovigilance has started, the history of pharmacovigilance. And I'll be speaking something about the recalls. What is recall and what else can be seen in recall. So I'll be discussing about the recall, and later on one of the interesting topic I'll be taking, which is scope of pharmacist in pharmacovigilance. What is the scope of pharmacist in pharmacovigilance? And then the most interesting topic, what are the different roles of pharmacovigilance? Now we will identify what are the different roles and what are the different job categories what we have as of now. What are the jobs we can go and start working on it? That I'll be taking my next agenda. And one of the interesting topic, what are the salaries what we have? So I have made it what salaries we get in India and also in the other countries. I have compared it. And then I'll be discussing about what is the process included in pharmacovigilance, the workflow of the process. And then I'll be discussing about the top companies who hires the pharmacist into this pharmacovigilance. So that's my agenda items. If you want to hear anything apart from this agenda items, you can message me in the Instagram and Facebook lives. Who else is joined, you can message me and you can ask. And you can always give a feedback about this session, so that the next session can be good enough or planned enough. So that's somehow I'm open for questions. Before I start, I'm going to tell I'm open for sessions, or I'm open for questions. I hope I'm very much audible to you guys and there is no background noise. So why I have chosen this topic, pharmacovigilance? That's the primary questions everyone will ask me, why I have started discussing about pharmacovigilance in this particular time of the coronavirus time. Because one of the biggest aspect is there are so much of fake news, fake messages which are roaming around. That is hydroxychloroquine and combination of azithromycin will give a very good treatment for coronavirus, or will give a very good effect on coronavirus. So that's something which we are hearing. But the opposite of that is combination of azithromycin and as well as hydroxychloroquine is giving a very fatal adverse events. So I think as per Hippocrates, there is a first statement which is giving is we should not harm the patient. So that's the primary objective why I wanted to speak about this. So never ever we give hydroxychloroquine and as well as azithromycin combination when the patient is suffering with different kinds of disorders, or he is having a comorbidities and also he is having some heart problems, because the combination of these drugs will increase the QT intervals. That's the primary agenda what I wanted to do today. So that's why I started speaking about pharmacovigilance, and I will have my more scope about what is this all about. And one more time, now because of coronavirus, everyone is asking one question. Though he is educated, not educated, everyone is asking only one question. What is making us not to prepare a new drug, or not to prepare a new vaccine? So that's a primary question which I am listening, because I am from clinical research background from since very long. So most of people are asking this question to me, that why we are unable to create a drug and vaccine. So it's a very simple question to ask, but very difficult to answer. because we are living in a society where we think that all data has to be proven. So how many trials have been performed on hydroxychloroquine and as well as azithromycin, we really don't know. So now there are some news that there has been vaccine which has been developed. There is some combination of drugs which are being developed. But how safe is this drug? How effective is this drug? So that shows our clinical research. One of the best branch in clinical research is our pharmacovigilance. So that's the primary agenda, that what is making us so much good. Now you see everyone is worried only one question, that why are we unable to create a drug or a vaccine? So now creating a drug or a vaccine is very easy, but testing it for its safety and effectiveness is very tough. So that's what I wanted to tell at this point of time. Our major focus is on what is pharmacovigilance and how best we can make sure that our healthcare providers or pharmacists can do it better and better ways. So that's one thing which I wanted to start before I go ahead. Then so first agenda item, what is pharmacovigilance? So that is the first agenda items. So what is pharmacovigilance? I think theoretically it speaks the four important aspects, and as per WHO it's a science and activities which deals with first one detection, second one assessment, and third one understanding, and fourth one is prevention. So first thing is we have to detect it. We have to detect the risks which are involved of the drugs, or either it is cosmetics or devices. Let's not focus on only drugs. It may be a device or a vaccine, or it may be a cosmetic product. Everything comes into us. So I don't want to only speak about drugs, but pharmacovigilance word is specifically given for drugs, but cosmetic product we are given a word called as cosmetovigilance. So that is one more time a different topic which I will be taking later on times. So now as of now it's a science and activities which defines as four parts. First you have to detect the risks, and then you have to assess the risks, understand the risk, and finally what we have to do is we have to prevent that risk. How are we going to prevent the risk? Now as I just said, taking a hydroxychloroquine and as well as azithromycin, which may give a problem of QT intervals issues, and the patient may die with a heart attack. So now you get a patient of heart attack and you are still giving a risk of providing this combination of drugs. So then patient will die. So never ever give a drug to this kind of patients who are old patients, as well as who have comorbidities of hypertension or diabetes or heart problems or kidney problems. So that's where we have, but there is a problem here. So now we are only discussing about adverse events. Then answer is no, we are not only discussing about only adverse events. There is a bigger word than adverse events. That's what I want to focus on today's session. That is drug related risks. So the definition includes that prevention of drug related problems as well as adverse events. So now what comes under drug related problems? Anything which happens with the drug is drug related risks. Like for example, a saline bottle is containing a microorganism. Though the saline bottle is not being inserted to the patient, but still it is a risky one because the saline bottle is containing microorganism. Then our pharmacovigilance team has to come and withdraw the molecule or withdraw the saline solution immediately, or else this may be given to many patients across the globe. So this is something you call it as drug related risks. We are not only assessing the adverse events or only the adverse reactions, but also the drug related risk. For example, I speak about medication errors. Okay, now how many of patients are being died with a medication error? So many. So but can we report this medication error? Answer is yes. Pharmacovigilance plays a major role in medication errors. Overdose, misuse, abuse, pregnancy, lack of efficacy, everything what I am telling is comes under drug related risks. So now first point to understand is our understanding on pharmacovigilance was absolutely wrong till now, that it was only used for the pharmacovigilance about the drugs, but it is also about the drug related risks, which includes your lack of efficacy, pregnancies or medication error and all those aspects. So that's about pharmacovigilance, and this definition is as per WHO. So we are following this definition. So I'll go back to my next agenda item, what made pharmacovigilance so much important. what made pharmacovigilance so much important. So the basic problem of our society is every drug, every cosmetic product, every device is having a problems. That is something we call it as risks. There is something word called as risks. Now we want the risks to be avoided, and we want the risks not to be there with respect to the drug. So the best rational use of the drug should be there for every patient. Every patient has the right of getting a best rational treatment. That's where the pharmacovigilance came into picture. So the history starts like this. There was a drug, I think I don't want to take much depth of this because most of you guys know about this, thalidomide tragedy. Thalidomide tragedy, most of you knows about thalidomide tragedy. The thalidomide drug was actually approved for sedative, and this drug, when it came as sedative, there was one more use which doctors or physicians have identified, that is antiemetic or as motion sickness. So some of the doctors started using this drug as antiemetic on motion sickness in pregnancy, but that use was not approved for the thalidomide drug. So that's something which is hidden. No one speaks about this, but I wanted to talk about this. So physicians started using this drug as off-label use, which is absolutely not correct, because that was not approved for given as the drug, but it was off-label use. The proper use of that drug was a sedative. So then the drug was being administered, and physicians started giving the drugs, and there were so many after so many years we have identified, or after a few years we have identified, there was a big problem happened to the small children who were born with a limb defect. I hope everyone knows about the story. Limb defect was the biggest problem with regards to thalidomide. So after that, immediately the WHO came, US came, and Europe came, and even Japan came. So these three countries came together and asked one question. Thalidomide tragedy has happened, and nearly 50,000 children were born with limb defect. So first question was, why this was not identified when first child was born? When first child was born, why this was not identified, and why this was not prevented, why we were not able to save 49,000 subjects or 49,000 children? So then everyone started saying only one thing, that they really don't know, that it has to be reported. So there was no absolute reporting system of the risks about the drugs before thalidomide tragedy happened. So that was the biggest concern about the thalidomide tragedy. It happened so much problems because every child who has to live their whole life without limbs, and it is a burden for that particular country, and it happened with only one small mistake. That mistake was thalidomide, and it is responsibility of every physician who has provided thalidomide without understanding this drug was not at all approved for the off-label use for antiemetic. So that was about thalidomide tragedy. There comes that we have identified the need of the immediate reporting of the risks, and also immediate taking prevention plans of that particular risks. Now we are in a society of very advanced society where we are logged in with so many of internet, and sometimes it's doing good and sometimes it is doing bad, because we get most of fake news, and I daily get so many calls about, sir, is this true that we are identifying this drug, or we have already identified, Roche already has identified, Hyderabad Central University has identified. So until unless the safety and efficacy of drug is not approved and not tested, we are not going to believe it. So that is the role of clinical research. Now people are ready to invest on clinical research, because since many years we are speaking only one topic, that there may be a situation where we may get antimicrobial resistance for all the antibiotics, and this is a situation very short duration we have got it. Okay, I'll have these questions at the end. So please have your questions, hold your questions at the end. I'll open for questions at the end. Thank you so much. So now, as of now, the biggest problem is we don't have a treatment for coronavirus. So we should have started identifying new molecules or new vaccines which can act on multiple areas of respiratory syndromes. So that's apart, and I'm going one more time to one more history, which is sulfanilamide tragedy. So this happened in 1937. There was a wonderful drug which was called as sulfanilamide, but the biggest problem is the sulfanilamide was not being given to the small children. So there was a pharmacist. I think every pharmacist is preparing their own syrups or solutions in your lab. So earlier days, pharmacists used to prepare the syrups or solutions, and we were used to called as compounders or compounding. Now we are getting everything as ready-made. But this sulfanilamide, a lot of patients and parents came back and asked that, can we give this drug as a syrup? Then he thought, okay, let me prepare a syrup, and he has identified DEG molecule. Okay, so DEG is something which is called as diethylene glycol. So which was very, very, very dangerous for human beings, but it was very easily absorbing the sulfanilamide. So without having that testing, he prepared it, and there were so many small children who were died because of only one person, and that person, that pharmacist, has suicided by himself after seeing this many deaths of the small children. So now that comes the trigger of the US FDA saying that every drug has to go for safety testing also. So I think these are the couple of histories which I wanted to speak, why we started pharmacovigilance and all those aspects. And next one, I'm going to drug recall. What is drug recall? I think most of us are looking for this topic, drug recall. Please don't use a word called as banned. It is not banned, it is recall. So because I come from industry, I speak in this language, and most of industry experts, most of regulations, most of guidelines speak as recall and not as banned. Okay, drug is banned. We don't speak like that. So recalls is of two types. Either you recall the complete molecule from the market because of the serious adverse event which drug is giving, or either you will only recall a particular batch numbers which have a PQCs, like product quality complaints. Like for example, lack of efficacy. There is a drug molecule which is not containing active ingredient as given on the drug label. So now if you start giving the drug, patients may die. So we started giving one drug and patient died. After a toxicity report, we have understood that drug is having lack of efficacy. So then what we started saying that, okay, immediately we will report this, and immediately that particular batch of a drug has to be recalled because it may be given to the some more patients and some more patients may die. So now that comes as a batch recall. We call recall as particular batch recall. There were so many drugs which were recalled based on the batch recalls due to lack of efficacies or product quality complaints or many other reasons. Even Johnson & Johnson was in a biggest problems because Johnson & Johnson came into picture when the small baby powders were being treated with some of the reagents which can lead to carcinogenicity. And they were being put into court also, and huge fines were implemented to Johnson & Johnson. So that's something, a particular drug recall of that particular batch number. So they had some batch numbers from 2012 to 2014 baby powders which were being manufactured were having carcinogenicity. So we should be very careful because we are into a very much data centric society. Remember, we believe on data, we don't believe on words. Words are very sweet, but we don't believe on words. I can tell you now that coronavirus, I have a good vaccine. You will feel happy. But the main answer is, do we really have the particular data about that? How many patients is being tested? How is this randomized or not? Is this controlled or not? Like now, people are saying so many things that after giving hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin for 15 days, patients were treated. Now the isolation period is 15 days. Now if you don't give the azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine also, symptomatically if we give treatment, then they will get okay. Then why should we give the load of the antibiotics, the antivirals? So that's probably we ask these questions. So start asking questions, start thinking different way, or else it will be a different situation. Yeah, drug recall, it can be a recalling a particular molecule or a particular batch number. So I think there are so many drugs which were recalled, and even recently ranitidine drugs, I think everyone have heard about it. Ranitidine tablets 150 mg and 300 mg, particularly which were manufactured by Dr. Reddy's, because long-term use of this can give a carcinogenicity. Remember these words. Ranitidine, if I take for one time, it may not give a carcinogenicity, but when you use for a long term, you may get carcinogenicity. And ranitidine is a first line drug for any kind of drug which creates the gastric problems. Now you give a paracetamol. As I said, pharmacovigilance is something which you call it as detection and assessment, understanding and prevention. Last word is prevention. Now I have understood that paracetamol is giving gastric ulcers. Now how to prevent it? Give a ranitidine, it will prevent it. So now every doctor knows only one thing. Any of NSAID combined with ranitidine. Any of the antibiotic combined with ranitidine. Yeah, I think phenytoin. Thank you so much, Hema. Phenytoin is also being recalled, latest recalled. That's what Hema is telling. Thank you, Hema, for that. And even sterile drug products were being recalled, and there was a recall for metformin also. Yes, and there were many drugs which is ketorolac which was recalled, and next one, some of the contraceptive pills were recalled, and there were so many drugs which were recalled because of lack of efficacy and lack of the right mechanism of action or serious adverse events. So that's about recalls. The list of recalls goes so much. Okay, now comes back to scope of pharmacovigilance. What is scope of pharmacist in pharmacovigilance? Yeah, I think the Somesh, the question is yes, we have metformin. When it is taken for a long term, it may give carcinogenicity. That's what the recent report says. But please hold on your questions. I'll definitely give your answers. Now, till I think when I started my career in the year 2006, at that point of time, there were so many opportunities for pharmacists, and one of the best opportunity was to work as medical representative, because we get more money in medical representative. So most of my classmates have started working in medical representative. Apart from medical representative, there were options of working in production, which is always open, QA and QC, or you go as formulation R&D or analytical R&D. So these were options when we had in 2006, but very few people known about that time in 2006 that there was a career called as clinical research. So at that time when I started my career, it was very budding stage, but now it has grown so much and it is giving so much of jobs. And now, as I said, coronavirus, you see how much difficulty we are. Now, do you think that we stop our work? We will never stop our work, though anything happens to any works, but clinical research will never will stop it. Now, earlier when pharmacist was there, he was working on production. Then later on they brought back PharmDs. PharmDs was in order to make sure that PharmDs work with respect to patient centric. So earlier we were product centric, now later on patient centric. Now beyond patient centric, we have gone to an area which is called as data centric. Now we are believing on data, and we want people who can work on the pharmacovigilance data so that they can put it to the whole world, that how many adverse events are happening, what is the risk it has, how many problems it is giving, and what is the immediate effects. We have to take a prevention plans about the drug. And pharmacovigilance is not one-time activity, guys. It is lifelong activity. Till the drug is there in the market, we have to do it. And it has opened huge wings for a pharmacist, and clearly stating pharmacovigilance gives the openings, jobs only to PharmDs, B Pharms and M Pharms. That's it. So no other peoples will be allowed to work in pharmacovigilance. Yes, definitely there are some teams whom they will take the doctors, MBBS, MD, pharmacologist, because they think that they are more of patient knowledgeable, and we are less of product knowledge or the patient knowledge. But yes, we have to keep on updating our knowledge so that we can fight for our rights and our knowledge. So this is a global industry, guys. Don't think it's only in India. I'm not at all going to speak about Indian regulations. I'm going to speak about the international regulations, because we have to fight globally. We have to get jobs globally, not in India. That's where the salaries of pharmacovigilance is also too much high. So that's the scope of the pharmacist. And going forward, in India specifically, we are not reporting with the patient specific. Now, no patient will report the adverse events. Remember this in India. So patient reporting is specifically happening in 3 countries. One is in US, one is in Europe, and one is in Japan. It means that patient can take a drug and he can call a toll-free number. There is a toll-free number where patient directly reports it. But now Indian system is something which we are slowly putting our legs, that there are some specified hospitals where doctors will be reporting, or HCPs will be reporting, or healthcare professionals or pharmacists will be reporting these adverse events to a particular organization, IPC, okay, Indian Pharmacopoeia Committee. So this people directly reports to DCGI about the new adverse events. Okay, so that's about Indian system. But in US or Europe, it has, everyone can report. It can be a literature case, it can be a spontaneous case, it can be a clinical trial case, anything. And pharmacovigilance is divided into 2 types, guys. Remember, pre-marketing and also post-marketing. So during clinical trial also we work for pharmacovigilance. You cannot say that during clinical trials we cannot work on pharmacovigilance. It's a myth that only phase 4 is considered as pharmacovigilance. No. Okay, before the trials and post-marketing surveillance and till the drug is in market, we have to do this pharmacovigilance. So that's about the scope of PV. And next one, I will be speaking about what are the different roles we have. That's one more important point. So there is a one new role which is called as MICC, Medical Information Call Center. Yes, please hold your questions, guys. I can tell yes, but please hold your questions. I'll give 5 minutes of time. In that 5 minutes of time, please put your questions. I'll answer all the questions. Okay, first role, MICC. So this role is very new role, and all over the world they are looking at India to hire the people in pharmacovigilance, particularly in this team, which is MICC. And this role, full form of this is Medical Information Call Center. We will be receiving calls from the patient, as I said, from US and Europe and Japan, and they will be reporting the adverse events what they have got. So we have to understand what case he has got, and we have to assess what is the risk he has got, and we have to process the case and we have to report it to the regulatory body. And this particular jobs are enough in too much high numbers. I think recently also I have got one requirement that there are 25 openings and they wanted people, and we were unable to find out the people because the requirement is very clear that they have to have very strong knowledge on a pharmacovigilance and very good communication skills, because they have to understand the cases which are being reported by the US or Europe team. Okay, someone are asking for lives. I have given them lives. Okay, now next one is the drug safety associates. The drug safety associates, generally this is a myth that we only have one job which is called as drug safety associate. So these are the people who process the case. These are the people who understands the case, who cracks the case. Okay, a case means, as I said, it may be adverse event, lack of efficacy, pregnancy, anything. Okay, these people cracks the case, and this DSAs are specifically hired by pharmacists and no other people. Even MICC role, guys, MICC role also they are hiring only these people. So DSAs are those, and there is one more specific roles, clinical coders. It's not the same what you are hearing outside. It's clinical coding, and we have 2 international certified dictionaries, internationally accepted dictionaries, including USFDA and EMEA, that is MEDRA and WHODD. So there's 2 dictionaries who are perfect. There is guys, my voice is audible, or I'm getting some of the request that my voice is not audible. Can anyone message me whether my voice is audible or not, please? Can anyone let me know my voice is audible? My voice is audible? Yes, no? Yeah, okay. Okay, audible. Thank you so much. Okay, now clinical coder. I have also spoken about this role, clinical coder. And there is one more role, which is QC reviewer. Okay, these people are being paid so much of high salaries, QC reviewer, and these people are little bit experienced when compared to the DSAs. Okay, drug safety associates. And one more time, QC reviewers also are being hired by pharmacists. And there is one of the interesting role, which is medical review. Okay, and in this particular medical review, there are 2 people who are being hired. One is the PharmDs, very happy for PharmDs. The second person is MPharm Pharmacology. So now these 2 people are being preferred because these 2 people are being understood that they have a very good knowledge on understanding the relationship between the adverse event and the drug, understanding the comorbidities of the drug, understanding what are the aspects which relates to the adverse events of the drug. Okay, now this is medical review, and anyone who wants to go into medical review, you can join in this team. It's a very good team, and there is a couple of other teams. So one is the aggregate reporting team, and this team, there is no doubt there is a huge salaries you have. Aggregate reporting team, the people who write the PSURs, DSURs or PEDAs or PEBRADs. So these people are one more time preferred. So this is also been hired by pharmacists and even by allied sciences of homeopathy or PAMS doctors. There is one more team which is called as signal management, understanding signals, how the drug is really acting, and what are the unknown adverse events which are being identified now, and how can we go and report it to the adverse events. So this is signal management, and there is one more team which is triage team, and this triage team there are been hired with experienced. There are a couple of my students who are able to go into triage team, but it's very difficult to work in triage team. So but yes, if anyone wants to work in triage team, you have good roles. So now these are the teams, these are the jobs we have in only particular area called as pharmacovigilance. Now we still think that we don't have jobs. So I'm sorry guys, someone is taking live. Yeah, I'm sorry, someone is taking live for our sessions. Okay, coming back to salaries. And yeah, workflow hierarchy, you can reach to a managerial level to director level, and I have seen my students who have gone to associate directors, who have took my trainings 2012 or 13. So they are now in a position of associate directors. And yeah, salaries, MNCs, multinational companies are paying you nearly 2.5 lakhs to 3 lakhs. So that's a big salary as of now. The salaries which are being paid to Indian people. And it's one more time, if it is mid-level, 2 years of experience, it goes to 5 lakhs to 6 lakhs. 2 years of experience, 5 lakhs to 6 lakhs. And if you are having more than 5 years of experience or 6 years of experience, it goes to 8 lakhs to 9 lakhs. And more than 10 years of experience, 18 lakhs to 24 lakhs. So this is only in India. I am saying only in India. So it's apart from the other countries, it's only in India which I am trying to tell. And I have taken some data from US also. So as of now, the salaries for them paid is more than 3.5 lakhs as a fresher. And with a couple of years of experience, they are paying us 75 to 80 lakhs. 2-3 years of experience. That's something which I wanted to tell you. Okay, now next one, growth perspective. What are the organizations, what are hiring? I have divided the jobs into few types. The first type of jobs is the KPOs. Okay, the KPOs, which is, one more time, it is called as IT companies. Okay, IT companies or KPOs. We call it as KPOs or BPOs or IT companies. These three words stands same for pharma. So now remember one thing, pharma people are being hired by IT companies. Okay, now IT companies such as Accenture, Cognizant, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, IBM, Deloitte, Oracle, everyone is hiring pharmacovigilance team members, including freshers as well as experienced people. So that's one thing which I wanted to share at this point of time. And the next one, the next organizations which are being hired is CROs. Okay, I think in Hyderabad itself there are 20-25 mid-level CROs. All over India we have top 10 CROs are in India. So one of the best CRO to work is IQVIA. The highest paid salaries as of now is IQVIA. And PPD, Covance, Parexel, Syneos, all these CROs you can work. So IT companies is one, CROs is one. And the third one, pharma companies. Every pharma company should have a team of pharmacovigilance. So that's where it makes a lot of difference. Now, you name it as Reddy's, or you name it as Aurobindo, or you name it as Novartis, Pfizer, any pharma company should have a pharmacovigilance team in their organization. So that's about pharmaceutical companies. And the fourth point which I wanted to put at this point of time is, there are hospitals also who are hiring the pharmacovigilance team members. Okay, so there is hospitals, there is pharma companies, there is a CROs, and there is IT companies. These four companies are being hiring are pharmacists about the pharmacovigilance. So that's about the companies. And yeah, so now I wanted to speak about the process, what happens, the whole process. So in this process, I'll just highlight the overall process. In this process, the case processing is most important, which you will have a receipt of case, receiving of a case, triaging of a case, a data entry of a case, and a QC review of a case, medical review of a case, and reporting of a case. So this is about ICSR. If it is only single case, individual case safety report, then you will have this following process. I'll repeat this process so that if anyone wants to make a note, you can make a note. So first one, the receipt of a case. The second one is triage. The third one is data entry. The fourth one is QC review. The fifth one is medical review. The sixth one is reporting. So this is about ICSR. Remember, ICSR is different from aggregate reports. Now coming back to aggregate reports. Now what is aggregate report? In a duration of a time, maybe 6 months or 12 months or 24 months, we have to report all kind of risks which patient is having in a particular format. And there are different aggregate reports, guys, different aggregate reports. It may be a PSUR, PEDAR, PEPRAR, DSUR. All these are kind of reports. Every country has different reporting systems. Now, as of now in India, we are following DSUR. In US, they are following PEDAR, and in Europe, they are following PSUR system. Okay, and PEPRAR is for ICH regions. So that's about the process. Overview of the process I have said. Because of lack of time, I have said. And I have some of the list of companies which I wanted to speak about today. So there are some companies. The first company is Bioserv and Clininvent, Clinigene, Dr. Reddy's, Eli Lilly, GlaxoSmithKline, iGate, Intlus, Cognizant, Accenture, Johnson & Johnson, Lambda, Lupin, Merck, Medtrich, Northrop, Novartis, Novo Nordisk, Pfizer, PharmaNet, and Parexel, Quintiles, Infosys, TCS, Ranbaxy, Roche, Redstack, Zero, Sanofi, Torrent, so Vimta Labs, Zydus, Accutest, Actimus, Almamic, Asian Clinical Trials. So all these are the different companies. Because of lack of time, I have not able to read all the companies. Yeah, so I wanted to discuss something more serious enough, which is called as timeline. So timeline for reporting of adverse events from HCP to the sponsor, and from sponsor to the main aspects is to the regulatory bodies. So what is the timeline? What we are having is, we have 7 days for a fatal and life-threatening situation. 7 days of timeline for fatal and life-threatening situations, and 15 days of timeline for all other seriousness criteria if it is suspected, unexpected, serious adverse event. Okay, so this is the timeline. I'll repeat this timeline: 7 days for fatal and life-threatening, and 15 days for all other serious adverse reactions if the case qualifies suspected, unexpected, serious adverse reaction. So that's about the reporting timelines. Yeah, and my last agenda item which I have missed, maybe what are our future programs, what is Clinosol planning, what are our future programs. So one of the best thing what we can get to know is, we are going to release a magazine which most probably mid of April will be receiving, which is Clinosol magazine, and hopefully you will be coming up with more live programs. If anyone wants any particular live program, please let me know. I have already completed a live program on medical writing, and this is the second program. This third program, COVID also I have did it, and most probably next version, next topic on live would be on SAS. I'll be discussing about what is SAS and how the pharmacist can work as a statisticians or statistical analysis software and all those things. So more live programs are on the way, and there were so many publications. I wanted to thank all the Clinosol team members. There were some 20 publications which are already been published, more articles on the way, and one of the biggest good news for all the pharma people is we are going to release a new website for certifications, which will be a free of cost, which will have Clinosol certifications. You can go and log in and read and do the certification, and you will get an instant certificate for all the topics of clinical research. So there is a zero cost for certifications. It includes your clinical research, CDM, pharmacovigilance, SAS, CRISC, medical writing, regulatory affairs, TMFs, artificial intelligence. So but each person can only write 2 exams, not more than 2 exams, and there are negative markings, and we have put a percentage of 80%, and for each questions you will be given only 15 seconds. So as much as tough we can make, so that you will be serious about these exams. So we have made it, and only 2 attempts will be given. So I hope I'll be discussing about the certifications in one more live sessions, and I think that's the future programs of Clinosol. And now I'll post it, the date and time of the program for SAS. Definitely we are going to use the full time for this programs, how much we can use the COVID time. And I'm very thankful to, before I close this, because or else my students will kill me, this materials or this data, this content was prepared by a couple of students. I wanted to thank them personally. Their names are Charishmita, PharmD 6th year, and Pujita, PharmD 6th year. And I wanted to thank the whole Clinosol team, including Umapriya and as well as Randeep. Thank you so much for helping me. And yes, apart from this, my students are supporting me so much. Thank you so much, guys. Because we are having continuous online classes, Skype classes, and yes, we are going to continue the classes, and we are not going to waste any time for due to coronavirus, and we are going to use more time. Whenever the coronavirus subsides, we have to be ready for the jobs. So that's one point which I wanted to tell. Thank you. And to be closing part, I have 5 minutes of time. I think we have taken some 46 minutes as of now. We have 5 minutes of time to have questions. So I'm open for questions now. Anyone who was asking questions, I'll tell you the date and time of SAS program, and you can follow on the Sklinozol Facebook page and Instagram post, and we'll put it for you guys. Any questions you can post it. I'm okay to answer at this point of time. And there are some questions which I have got. Yeah, can't pharmacovigilance be helpful in recent COVID clinical trials? Yes, it is helpful. We are working on those areas. That's where I was able to tell that hydroxychloroquine and the azithromycin is very dangerous to take it. So any drug or vaccine which comes into market has to be done on pharmacovigilance, and we are definitely going to work on COVID also. So that's Prami question. So okay, will hypertension drugs, statins, cause carcinogenicity when used for long term? See, it depends, guys. It depends. So now if you ask about a particular drug, then we have to go and refer to PSURs and DSURs, whether they really have reported that a long-term use of a drug in combination of any drugs have given a carcinogenicity. And this work is done by pharmacovigilance. So I think that is one question which I have got. And can metformin cause? Yeah. Batch of recall phenytoin. Yes, Hema, thank you so much. And okay. I think I have already spoken, sir. Now, how is the progression in reporting of ADRs in India? I have already spoken. There is no patient reporting. The only thing is we have to be more updated ones, and we should be having more of this kind of sessions. We should have more of learning, more of practical approach, application approach, and what is required, not given in the books, which we can learn and we can put it ourselves to the globe. So anyone who is going and speaking about pharmacovigilance, you have to be more of knowledgeable. Any other questions, guys? I'm giving 5 minutes of time for questions, and I'm searching for old questions if I have anything. I don't think so I have any questions. Any more questions anyone have? You can put it to me. Okay, in Insta I have answered all questions. In Facebook, good evening, good evening, good evening. Anyone is having any questions? I'm open for questions. I hope this session was useful. Somehow we are feeling bored in the home. I got one question. Being a quality assurance personnel, is there any role relation to pharmacovigilance? Absolutely no. QA is entirely different, which comes in production. But in pharmacovigilance also we have the quality review, which is entirely different from quality assurance. Entirely different. We don't have a specific role called as quality assurance. There is a team called as auditing, which is a good team, but no, we don't have any team called as quality assurance. Any further questions? I will give couple of minutes of time if anyone has any questions. I hope session was good, and this session will be posted in YouTube also. You can listen to this YouTube videos. You can even look into the Instagrams and Facebooks. Instagram, I think 24 hours this video will be available, and YouTube you will have this videos posted. And you can always post me that what is the next session anyone wants to hear from me. Okay, I'm okay to take the sessions, any topics, anyone who wanted. If you wanted to know about the diagnostic tools, if you wanted to know about clinical trials which is happening on COVID, you can ask me. I will take that session. There is one more question. Is there any relationship between health outcome research and PV? No. There is a lot of difference in health outcome research and pharmacovigilance. I think if anyone wants to listen about health outcome and outcome research, you can let me know. I'll take one more session. COVID-19 affects jobs like no or less hirings? Definitely no, particularly for clinical research. We should be very happy about COVID-19 because people have started asking why we are not able to bring a new drug. So now we are able to tell that boss, still 15 years we are working on these lines and you really don't know. Even my parents does not know what I work. Now they have understood, okay, these people are working on some aspects of new molecules without which humanity is not there. You see the Spain, you see Italy, you see China, you see US. What is the happening? Biggest disasters. Okay, now Italy has said that we cannot help it at now. So this is the problem. Okay, now we are definitely not going to be affected. Once the coronavirus is subsided, India is going to become hub for pharmacovigilance and clinical research, data management, and SAS and CT scan medical writing and regulatory affairs, as well as health outcome or health economics and outcome research. So almost most of jobs are there. Definitely I'll be speaking about each topic every Sunday. If time permits, every Sunday I'll be taking one live sessions, definitely. And I hope everyone had a good session today. And I'm open for feedback. Anyone wants to give one feedback or a couple of feedbacks? Anyone? How was the session? Do you want to listen anything new apart from this? Anything new which you wanted or any feedback you wanted to give, you can post it to me. And you can always contact me and you can contact Clinosol team. They will get back to me. Okay, before I close this, I should tell about myself also. That's the first point, but I'm doing it last. I'm sorry for that. My name is Mujib and I'm the founder and CEO for Clinosol Research Private Limited. And we are at Hyderabad and Vizag and Germany. We have 3 offices. More updates coming in. There are a couple of US companies who wants to collaborate with Clinosol. So if I think they have already signed an MOU with us, and I'm not going to officially announce the names. I'll be letting you know very shortly, most probably next live sessions. I'll be telling you which are the companies who have signed the MOUs with us. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Knowledgeable session. Thank you guys. And if there are no questions further, I'm happy to close this. Yeah, I'll be happy to take the more sessions on clinical research. I have not taken on clinical trials also. Informative, want to listen on HEOR? Yes, absolutely. I will be taking that session, health economics and outcome research, and what are the scopes of health economics also I'll be discussing. Hema session was good and very useful. Conduct session on CDM cert soon. Definitely guys, but you should not pressurize me. One person is asking one topics. One person is asking SAS and one person is asking HEOR. One person is asking CDM. So I'll be definitely taking all the sessions. And yes, thank you so much. I'll be definitely taking continuous sessions, live sessions. Let's use this time. Anyone wants to write any publications, articles or research works, you please contact my team or contact me. You can contact my team. They will give my mail ID. Anyone wants to do any research, any ideas you wanted to for research, if you are sitting at home and if you are feeling bored, please don't watch TVs now. It's a right time for us to think about more aspects. Yeah guys, and I think clinical pharmacist, yeah, definitely I'll be taking one session on clinical pharmacist because I am a pharmacologist. I'll be discussing about clinical pharmacist. I'll be asking some of the MD pharmacologists also to take the one session. So any other questions? When is the classroom's next batch course will start, sir? So as of now, COVID is going to affect our activities. And as per WHO, it's going to affect for a couple of more months. So we can't start anything as of now, the classroom sessions. But please be assured that you work on live sessions or online classes or online sessions. Anyone wants to write any publications, research work, please get back to me. Please don't waste your times. You can ask materials. I'll be providing you interview materials. Definitely I'll be providing you Vamshi about cracking of GPATs. Definitely We'll plan. I need good ideas. I need good suggestions. I think I have got so many suggestions today. Thank you so much who have asked questions and suggestions. And Faizan, thank you so much. If nothing is there, I'll close this today's session, and definitely we'll meet next session. Thank you. Signing off. Bye bye. Bye.